Are you looking to buy or sell real estate? You've got questions, we've got answers. Welcome to the show, It's Gonna Be Great, featuring Matt and Jen from Home Team for You. And now, without further ado, it's Matt and Jen!
What's going on?
Hey. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. We are excited about our show today. We have an inspector who we will introduce in just a second. Yeah, just a second. In studio, we have Katie Hines, one of our team members. If you want to let people know what's going on.
Yeah, so this is probably the only Friday afternoon in a long time that I'm not doing 8 showings and writing offers that aren't getting accepted. So just kidding, guys. Just kidding. Yep. So glad to be here today, guys.
All right. Sounds good.
And today our special guest is Marc Schrader with Capital City Home Inspections. Marc, how you doing today?
Yeah. Great. Good to see you guys too.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where you're from? Favorite animals? Spirit animal?
Well, I am a northern boy. I grew up in Montana, and about 15 years ago, after migrating to Nebraska and Washington, I landed in Madison here. So, been here since 2005, and loved it.
Nice.
I have no intention of leaving the area. So,
Nice.
So we mentioned a little before that we're going to be talking about home inspections. Can you kind of let our listeners know, the home inspection process and kind of why people are doing it?
well, sure. Home inspections have been a thing probably about 40, maybe up to 50 years. The process actually started in California with the intention to protect real estate agents and reduce their liability, so they weren't just selling people lemons or saying something was what it wasn't. And so it's become a big thing over the past 20 years. It's become really popular. Almost everybody gets a home inspection for a good reason. It's an unbiased person walking through the property. We don't care whether the house sells or whether it doesn't sell. We just want people to be aware of what they're buying. So we're the unbiased party in the transaction, and it reduces liabilities for the buyers, the sellers, and of course the agents. So
Awesome.
What's your favorite story? What's your home inspection story that you tell everybody that's either funny or horrific?
Yeah, maybe a horror story.
Before the show, I figured to ask a question like that, and there's two things that came to mind, Matt. And one of them you probably remember.
Oh, good.
It was probably the first time I met you. A squirrel had come out of.
That's
right.
That was the best
That's
ever.
why you're scarred when you hear his name. No, I'm just kidding.
Around the house.
Yeah, wasn't we were?
Yeah.
It came out of you took out the air filter, wasn't it?
Yeah, something like that. I don't remember.
Removed the air filter, and a squirrel came running out, and then it ran up a pole, and then got in the ductwork.
Yeah,
So you
no,
didn't hear the end of the story. Then I had a set live trap.
A company
and
came and set a live trap.
A company came and set a live trap, and I drove over there a couple weeks later and check on it, and I looked in the window. The squirrel was sitting on the windowsill inside the house looking out at me.
Yeah, it took forever to catch that squirrel. They finally did catch it and get it out.
Did catch it, yeah.
Didn't know that there was an after story, did you?
He figured there was something.
Well, that story jumps to mind, but one of the most memorable ones that I have was from probably about a year ago when I was inspecting a house that was the people had bought it as a flip. They bought it in a fire auction from the sheriffs, and so you'd expect a house like that to be as is condition, right? But anyways, these people had done all this work. They had made it look pretty nice on the inside. And in the basement, I was in the basement walking around, and I was looking at the insulation in the rim joist cavities, and I saw this tip of a little blue bag, and it ended up being a bank bag and had probably 50 grand in it.
What?
Wow.
And I was the only person in this empty house. The sellers weren't there, the buyers weren't there, and you just have this moment of,
What do I do?
am I
That's
gonna be honest,
insane.
or should I just see my bag and walk out?
It's like a morality test right there.
I know, right?
You were
Yeah, that was
probably
the
on
story.
some TV show, like hidden camera
Yeah.
TV show. They're like, what's he going to do?
The same-
Dateline.
The same show had that squirrel too.
Yeah.
Because I remember chasing that squirrel around the basement with I think a broom or something, wasn't it? We're trying to get
He
it to go
took a
back up
video of it, and
I
he
do
was
have a video
showing.
of
I
it.
remember you showing your
Yeah.
family, like, look at what happened today. You running from the squirrel.
I can't believe that though. Like to find a bag of money, like what do you even do at that point? Like, do you call the cops or what do you do?
Well, you know,
Yeah.
I called the agent that I was working, that was, the buyer's representative, because the buyers weren't there either. So I was like, what do I do with this? He's like, he got a hold of the listing agent who happened to be a realtor too.
They split
And
the
I'm like, and
yeah,
they
just an
split
odd
it?
situation. I literally, I said, hey, can I get a
Finder's
finder's
fee.
fee? So I took $2,000 of that.
Nice.
I gave it to some friends in Sun Prairie that are teachers. And I said, can you do something good with this? Because I have a feeling it was bad money.
Oh,
right.
that's good though. Giving it to a teacher, that's a
think
good
if
way to
you're-
go about it.
I think if you're getting foreclosed on and you lose the house, that's the one thing you'd remember to get out of the house.
Yeah, you'd think. It's funny.
I know.
Very
Crazy.
cool.
And
Very cool.
that money's tied up in court someplace right now if they're honest
Yeah.
about it. So
Yeah,
who knows what
probably.
happened? I don't know.
Huh, that's nuts.
Interesting. Okay, so question for you then. How long does an inspection typically last?
There's going to be some variables, obviously, depending on how big the property is and what condition the property is in. Newer houses tend to take less time than, of course, an old house with lots of issues. And also the size. The bigger the house, it's going to take longer, obviously.
Sure.
So instead of having one electric panel in a typical house, you end up with 3 or 4, and that always adds to the time. So those kind of things.
Sure.
So about your 3-bedroom, 2.5
Typically
bath.
three typical inspection is probably going to take 2.5 to 3 hours.
Yeah.
Okay.
How many do you try and do in a day?
Well, I've done 3 in a day, and I don't like that. I honestly only try to do 1 or 2. One's ideal for me, especially with the kids having been home, and their schedules and whatnot. So, but yeah, it's not unusual to do 2 a day, especially in the spring. Although, like Katie said earlier, this has been kind of a weird spring.
Yeah.
I've been busy and slow. Like there's not enough inventory, obviously. So
Is there a lot of
we're
back?
getting what we-
Is there a lot of work after you get done with the inspection? Is there a lot of work after that to do?
Well, early on in my inspection career, yes. I've gotten to the point where I'm mostly writing my report, most of it while I'm there. Of course, I write narrative reports, and so I'll go back and read through the whole report, kind of skim over it just to make sure that I covered my bases and got everything I needed to say in there. And I try to write grammatically correct, so I kind of edit as I go. But
Yeah.
so I did most of it on site.
Awesome. Yeah, I've noticed your reports usually have like quite a bit of information there, and maybe even like who to contact next. Like, say there's something that comes up that like maybe you're not a specialist in. Like I don't know like if that's foundation or chimney or whatever that is, but I've noticed on your reports that it sometimes says like contact, a chimney specialist or such and such. What are some of those things that home inspectors don't necessarily, I guess, look at in a home inspection?
Let's see. Well, it probably depends on the inspector to some extent.
Sure.
Whereas I'll try to get the most attics, and a lot of inspectors will just like maybe poke their head up into the attic. And so at which point you may not see a lot of the attic if you're just putting your head in there or something like that. But as far as the inspection goes, we all cover pretty much the same stuff. We should be covering everything from the roof down to the foundation and everything inside the house, the major mechanicals at least, basic electrical stuff, and testing it. According to the state standards, you should test a representative number of windows. Of course, depending on the inspector, that could be testing 2 windows or testing every window,
I suppose.
So it really depends on who you hire to do the job, but everybody should be looking at basically the same stuff.
I suppose this time of year you have, well, we're past that now, but you have snow on the roof, and you have air conditioning units you can't really get at because it's too cold to run them. So I guess those are 2 things
Sure.
depending on weather.
Yeah, and you get those seasonal limitations. I actually, even this winter and past several winters, I've realized you can still see a lot of the roof on most days, unless it just snowed. Snow tends to melt off the roofs pretty quick. Of course, you can't see everything. So yeah, at which point we just say, hey, we couldn't see it all, you know.
Yeah. I was going to say,
might have some-
sorry, Mark. I was going to say this past fall, I remember we did a condo inspection, and I was sitting in my car at the bottom of the hill, and like Mark was like on a ladder that was like 2 or 3 floors up in this apartment building. Like on top of, or this condo building, like on top of the condo building. And I was just like looking straight up like, oh my God.
Die.
He's standing straight up like it's nothing. He's just like, I don't know how you guys do that.
Close their
Yeah,
eyes.
well, it's funny. I just recently got a drone, and so that'll change things. I won't be going up on high roofs like that.
That's good. Yeah, that's better for your health.
Yeah, I'm getting older.
Some of the things that I remember, because when we first started in real estate, inspectors didn't have to be licensed. So people would just get, Uncle Fred to walk through, and then there would be lots of arguments over, well, Uncle Fred thinks that's a defect, but like a real contractor who's a licensed person doesn't think it's a defect. Now you guys all have to be licensed, correct?
Correct. Yeah, as home inspectors, they are licensed. Yeah.
What is the process to become a home inspector?
Well, it's not too hard to become one as long as you can pass a couple basically general tests about home inspections. Obviously, Wisconsin does have some state standards that every home inspector should follow. So those tests are based on those standards. Of course, like I've learned that a home inspector never quits learning because for one, everybody builds things a different way. Especially the older the house, you see people get creative, and at which point it becomes really kind of an inspector's opinion whether something's maybe an issue or not. But yeah, you have to be a generalist, so you learn a lot as you go, and a lot of that just comes from experience, seeing things that didn't work maybe, and also I read a lot of installation manuals for all sorts of products, for all sorts of appliances, so kind of get an understanding of how things are supposed to be.
You're the person that reads those. Thank you.
Yeah,
It's got a binder of
first we read them,
manuals.
and then we'll argue with the builder when the builder doesn't do it right, and So,
Nice.
What is a typical big ticket item that you might find in a home inspection?
big ticket items could be anything from like a roof. A roof could be a big ticket item. A roof that's failing or that's just at the end of its useful life.
That's my favorite line
End of
too.
useful life could be, it may have 5 years or left probably, could be considered end of life for a roof. So that's always a big one. Other things that can be big ticket items would be maybe basement foundation walls that are bowing in or that are leaning or something like that, where they support the whole structure. And so those become bigger deals than just like, an air conditioner seems like a big deal, but not as big a deal as a foundation. So that's messed up. But any sort of mechanicals obviously can be big ticket items, costing a couple thousand or more for certain appliances. So
That's good to know. Do inspectors usually look at like sheds and garages and other structures that are not like attached to the home, even though they're on the property, or do you guys not look at that?
That's going to depend on the inspector. I know a lot of inspectors, if you request that, they'll charge an extra fee. Some people just don't look at it at all. Technically, it's not a component related to the home. In Wisconsin, a detached garage is considered part of, an inspector should be looking at a detached garage, as long as it's the garage that's used primarily for a car. But as far as sheds or outbuildings, it's going to depend on the inspector whether they look at them of no charge. Maybe they want to look at them for an extra 50 or $100. I tend to look at them if they look like they're part of the property, I'll inspect at least the electrical and general structure of the building. But usually they are what they are. They're a pole shed or a place to store the trash or the lawn tractor or whatever it might be. So
I suppose that depends on the buyer, whether they want you to check that or not.
exactly, that's a lot of it. Yeah.
So I know when I was going on a lot of inspections, buyers would want to know costs of things. What do you do with that when people are just like, well, is that expensive? What is that going to do? I mean, I'm sure there's rules about what you can say or not say.
Ask your realtor.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're right. Everybody has a different definition of what's expensive and what's not. So for one person, a ceiling fan that's not working, which might cost a couple $100 for a ceiling fan and a couple $100 more for somebody to install it or something like that. That can be a big ticket item for somebody else that they really don't care because they're going to change the light fixtures anyways. But yeah, so when somebody usually asks me if something's going to run, I kind of give an estimated range usually, what I think it would run. And with COVID, I've tried to up that a little bit because I know with COVID, it seems like a lot of things have gone up in price related to housing and houses. So especially lumber. If you're building a house, watch out.
Yeah, for sure.
There's other inspections involved in home purchasing too. What do I'm assuming you do radon.
Yes. Yeah, radon is a big one in Wisconsin, especially in Dane County area, because we are considered, we're in the red zone. They call it a red zone, but your chance of having elevated levels of radon is higher in Dane County than some other places in Wisconsin. So, yeah, radon testing. Some people will test, I don't do any of this. I just do the radon testing, but you could have other people test for lead-based paint or something like that if you're concerned about that. Maybe lead in your water. Again, that would be kind of a more rare thing. If you're buying a house that's not on municipal water supply, you'd probably, I'm sure you'd have inspections done on the septic system and on the well water. I'm sure anybody who watches the news is aware that Wisconsin's water is kind of precious commodity and a lot of times has some issues. So testing what kind of things are going to be in that water is always important for people that are buying a house with a well.
So if you see mold in an inspection, you just identify that it's there and just recommend that the buyer find somebody to test that or remediate?
Correct. Mold, we assume mold is mold. I mean, you'd have to test it to actually determine whether it's actually mold. But if it looks organic, I usually say it looks like mold, or I call it mold.
It's mold.
Discoloration.
Mold. I think most of us could identify mold just by looking at it. If it looks sporish, it's probably mold. So, but yeah, I tell people more to deal with the cause of the mold. Why is the mold there? What caused it? And what can we do about it? You can have somebody go and test it and pay a fortune to know that it's a certain type of mold, but who really cares about that? Yeah. At the end of the day, you just want to get rid of the mold and be done with it and not have it reoccur. So mold always requires water, obviously. And so you have to figure out where that water is coming from, what's feeding the mold, what kind of organic material it might be growing on, but really water. If we can pinpoint where that water and moisture, humidity is coming from, then we can deal with the problem and the mold will deal with itself. So
yeah, that's a really good point. I think buyers, that's probably a question that you get a lot, right? Like, oh, there's mold, what do we do? Or
people are scared of mold for some reason.
It's like a pet.
There's a lot of negative hype about mold, I think, out there. So,
but like every house has mold somewhere.
Every house has mold, yeah. Well, it's in the air too. It's floating in the air. We are breathing it whether we want it or not. So especially during certain times of year when the farmers are out there doing their fields. I mean, we're all breathing that dusty air. Some of that has mold in it, and
I'm wearing a mask.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Yeah. Well, thanks, guys. I'm gonna have nightmares now about mold everywhere I go. Mold. Anyway, okay, so mold's maybe not as big of a deal as what I've always thought in my whole life. All right, that's fine. What questions should buyers be asking you at inspections? What are some of those things that you expect them to ask and you think maybe they should be asking?
Well, I always ask buyers what their concerns are because they could care less, I probably have to say, on some things, but they want to know certain specifics. So I always encourage them to ask what they really want to know about. And then I always make an effort to show them the things that I feel like are important if they don't come up in their questions. So the basic things like where to shut the water off and those kind of things, where to change your furnace filter. And, all those little things that most homeowners probably do, but if you're a new homeowner, maybe you've never done it before. So, yeah.
What do you do with folks where they're really, really focused on something and you're like, well, it looks okay, but they don't think it's okay, but you pretty much think it's okay, but they want you to indicate that it's not okay because to them it's not okay?
This is the ultimate question
Wow.
for
Yeah.
realtors.
For real.
Story problem.
That does occur. You know, some people get hyped up on one little small thing and they turn it into a mountain. And in some cases, you're able to like play it down or make them realize that it's not. In some cases, they don't care what you say. I've had that experience where they just don't care what I say. They think it's a problem, and so to them, it's a problem.
And they want you to put it in your report. And then what do you do?
In my report, I'm going to say this was the issue. You know, and I usually highlight things in my report. So I use a stoplight approach where I use yellow and red for like, if it's highlighted in yellow, slow down, something might need to be done. You might just need to watch it or observe something. If it's red, stop and fix it. And then I have generic comments that are in black. So a lot of times I might include that they made an issue, they noted this, so it's noted in the report, but I'm not going to highlight something like that's not an issue in red or yellow. It might just be in the general body of my report. So, I mean, as far as that goes, it's really difficult to deal with people that get stuck on something, though, that can't get past it. And we all have issues. We've all probably done that at some point in our lives. So,
what are some of those things that are coming to mind as you say that?
I've had people get worked up about stains on ceilings that are dry. And, you know, the house has a new roof on it or something like that, but the stain there's a water stain on the ceiling and it's dry, and they want to know why. And you're like, you try to explain to them, well, something got wet at some point. Now it's dry. You know, keep an eye on it if you're concerned, but that's all we can do, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, you keep coming back to this one stain like it's a big deal, you know? But in reality, they could probably just get some primer and some paint and cover it up and keep an eye on it, so.
Yeah. I have a question for Jen and Matt.
Oh, jeez.
What is the craziest thing you've ever had to ask for on an inspection, or had someone ask you for on an inspection?
Squirrel remediation.
Whether you were the buyer's agent or the listing,
Get the squirrel out of the house.
It sounded like that was very necessary.
Oh, the ones that we don't.
Crazy inspections. I can think of just an inspection that had a bizarre thing happen at it.
Okay, that works.
So, Mark, what would you do? You're at an inspection. It is a foreclosure. It's back in the day when you could just turn on the water and do the test, but the previous owner decided to booby trap all of the water. So you're doing the inspection, you turn on the water, and then water starts spewing from every place because the previous owner had like loosened every pipe. What do you do? Yeah,
Run.
That's awful.
Because I was at one of those, and it was, turn it off the water.
Yeah, why a seller would do that, I don't know.
They were mad at the bank.
They did it to me, like, this is a newer house, like a couple of years old. Somebody disconnected something at the sinks when I ran the dishwasher. Water ran everywhere. Why would you do that to your own house?
To your own house. Yeah. That's the thing. It's your house.
Yeah,
they're probably videotaping. That. They're like, watch this guy, see what he does.
Yeah, so then, of course, I'm using their towels.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember years ago on an inspection, we had it was a upstairs hot tub, and I think the GFCI was in the basement on the panel, and there wasn't enough water to cover the jets. And then when they went downstairs to trip the breaker, or they had it off, and it was tripped or something, they pressed the button and reset it. Water was spraying all over the bathroom.
Oh, because it wasn't over the jet. So it was just like, it was like a fountain.
That was also using the owner's towels to wipe that up.
Okay, buyers that are listening, you've heard some crazy things about home inspections today. Usually it goes just fine, okay?
Yeah. So apparently, like, we come back to water. Apparently. So water must be a thing.
I think the staining comment that Mark made is pretty spot on. Mm-hmm. That does come up a lot. That's nothing that's an issue.
What'd you say, Mark?
But what did Matt say? I didn't catch him.
Just that the water staining, that your comment about water staining is something that it comes across a lot, like past stains that aren't there anymore.
Yes,
yeah. Almost every house has a stain someplace that's
Mystery
dry.
switch and stains.
So.
What about what can you recommend for a seller to do to prepare for an inspection?
Ooh, can I tell you what people think that they should do and see if it matters?
Is this a game?
Yeah, it's a game.
Okay.
So people think if they change their furnace filter and they like get all the dust off all their mechanicals, that's going to make you think that they take better care of their property.
Add salt to the softener.
Yeah. Does that matter?
Well, maybe it does because you get a better impression. First impressions make a big difference, right? So having those things look makes it look like you actually cared or that you actually took care of it, even if you hadn't filled the salt and the water softener for the past 5 years, right?
Mm-hmm. So it's good that we tell people to do that.
I'm sure selling agents would tell their listing people to do that. I would if I was an agent.
Yeah.
If first impressions make a difference, I'm going to have a big welcome Marc sign made for all of our listings you do inspections on. Welcome, Marc.
Hey, all right.
Where's Marc? Oh, he's on the roof.
There's a special fountain for you up in the master bath.
It gets high marks.
Yeah. So you've got that. And then I've also heard that inspectors really like it when people make sure that there's not a whole bunch of stuff around the foundation so that you can see it and that you have access to the scuttle hole for the attic.
Yeah, that would be a good recommendation. That's something a lot of times that doesn't get done. Then it's either me moving people's stuff if I feel like it, or their stuff getting dumped on, right? Dumped on, I mean the insulation that's sitting up there that you don't suspect to be there is going to be there and it's going to fall down on people's clothes. So yeah, move their stuff out of the way.
Yeah.
Or when people have a car in the middle of their garage and you have to, and like the scuttle's in the middle of the garage and you're like, how do I get up there? There's a car there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, you can't then.
It's like, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I can't do that. Brings up a good point. Like every inspection is going to have some limitations where the inspector's just not going to be able to see certain things that maybe in another day they could have. So I've actually gone back to inspections to re-inspect something and you realize you missed something or, something happened or it just looks different lighting in a room and you see something you didn't see before. So I always tell people, hey, you get an inspector's at a house for 2.5 or 3 hours and then they leave, but you might get a different inspection on a different day at a different time of day just because the lighting's different or something like that. So tell people just to be observant when they buy a house. It's going to be their property to take care of, so pay attention to things. So,
do people ever have you go back to check after the inspection? So you have the inspection, you find something, the owner has it repaired. Do buyers ever have you go back and recheck it?
Yeah, that does happen. Not a lot, but semi-regularly. I do probably 5 or 6 re-inspections a year. Where people maybe the seller wanted to do the repairs themselves, and so then I'll go back and double check their work to just see that to make sure it was done in an acceptable fashion. That's usually when I go back. A lot of times people have a professional do the repairs if there are any to be done, and at which point they would have receipts to show the repairs. So
yeah. All right. Well, it was great to chat with you. Learned a lot. Now I want to find that squirrel video. We'll have to add that on to the end of the podcast or something so that people can see the magic in action.
It's been a while. I'm not sure if it's even on our phone anymore. How long ago was that, Marc?
Yeah,
it's got to be
was several years ago.
Yeah, but we have our Apple pictures and videos. So
this might have been pre that though. That's got to be, how many years do you think, Marc?
I can remember that house. It was a Cape Cod over by Shanks School.
Yeah, on the east side, yeah.
6 or 7 maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was a long time ago.
Oh,
I think I might actually have a picture of Marc on the roof too.
Oh,
so
I was
I'll
gonna
let
say.
you know. if
Marc
I
on the
find it.
roof. Marc
I'll
on
send
the
it to you,
roof.
Marc, if I have it.
All right. Well, very good. So thanks for joining us. If you want to go ahead and hop off, you are good to. Marc's been hanging on to his camera, so you can put it down now.
Rest your hands.
Rest your arm.
Hey, Marc, do you have your? Why don't you tell everybody your contact information quick, and then how they need to get a hold of you and schedule an inspection.
Yeah, the best way to inspect and to schedule is to go to our website at capitalcityinspections.com. That's capital with an A. But yeah, just go there, click schedule now. Really convenient, simple way to do that. So
awesome. Now I got to go back and find that squirrel video.
Yep, I'm excited.
I totally forgot
about
about
you guys too. So
yeah.
Thanks, Marc.
Thanks, Marc.
Good afternoon.
All right,
See ya.
thanks. Yep, see ya.
See you at our next inspection.
Yeah, see you then. Keep
Okay.
making those offers.
All right.
That's so funny that he brought up that
Oh, I
squirrel
totally
thing.
forgot about that. I gotta look it up and see if I can find it. What do you say, 5 or 6 years ago?
Yeah, I swear we still have to have that squirrel video. Because, I mean, this squirrel, we had to have a company come in, and literally the squirrel would sit in the window when you'd pull up and be like, hey.
I would die
I
if
see
a
you.
squirrel was sitting in the window like,
Yeah, it was just sitting there looking at me. So
Yeah.
because my truck was the window for my truck was about even with the window of the house. So I just turned like this, and it would just look at me. Just sat there
like,
and looked
what's
at
up
me.
now, humans?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who's smarter now? Who's in the house and who's outside?
It's like, but you're stuck in the house,
Yeah.
squirrel. We're going to let you out.
It was crazy. He literally
You don't have anything to
put-
eat.
As he took the filter out of the furnace, the squirrel ran out and around there. So it was Mark, myself, and then the 2 buyers, and it just ran like all around us. And then one of us tried to get it, tried to get it back
There's
up the
video
furnace.
of all of them going, get it, go.
The squirrel got past us and went up the support beam for the house.
Yeah.
And they got in some little opening in the duct, and you could hear it just running up and down the duct work.
Yeah, I think there might have been some swear words in that video,
I don't know
too.
what you're talking about.
From the squirrel, of course.
Yes, squirrel was swearing, yes.
Oh, all right. So that was good stuff. I know we had an article that we were kind of talking about a little earlier, the 8 tips for homebuyers to triumph in 2021, the ultra competitive real estate market. So I thought maybe we could go over some of those things and give our opinions. Do you think those things work? Are there other things we should be doing? So number 1, start with your strongest offer. What do you think?
I think that would be great if buyers did that. But I think in our market, the strongest offer might be, 30 grand over, no appraisal, no inspection. So like that is hard for first-time buyers to hit on the first offer. I think, we can tell them all day long, like, listen, I'm just preparing you for this market. This is what we're working with. But sometimes, not all the time, sometimes you get buyers that are just gung-ho and ready to go. But I think every now and then you do get buyers who are like, well, let's just try this. Like, I'm nervous.
Yeah, one of the things that I like to make sure that buyers understand is you're not going to get a counteroffer. Because I think a
Right.
lot of people think, well, they'll just counter me. And it's like, no, in this market, you don't get a counter.
I haven't even gotten a multiple counter yet this year. I mean, it's just not happening.
I've been seeing some.
Have you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
that's good.
Yep.
It
And
reassures you a little bit.
yeah. I've definitely been seeing some, but it's usually when you're seeing a multiple counter, there's a little something on each offer, and they're just trying to leverage to make the supreme super offer for the seller.
Sure.
So, but I do know, as just from being behind the scenes a lot, if you're in a competitive situation and there's like 20 offers on the table and you as the realtor, you're not hearing anything from that listing agent, that probably means your offer is not in the running.
Right.
So it's kind of like at that point when we go back to our clients and say, hey, I should have likely heard something by now. So if you guys want to tweak your offer, that's actually a pretty real thing.
I have something a question that goes along with that for you guys. A lot of times we're seeing in listings, they're collecting offers throughout the weekend and then they're going over offers on Monday or Tuesday. Now with that, does it make more sense to be the first offer on the table and get your offer in Friday evening? Or does it make more sense to wait it out throughout the weekend, see what other offers come in, and then put your offer in towards the last minute?
What's the difference?
Well, what
Right.
I would say is for it's the seller's prerogative if they actually want to wait.
That's the catch. If
So
they-
that's
Right.
the
Yeah.
catch. So the seller could be like, yeah, I know I told y'all I'm going to wait till Monday, but I got the most fantastic offer ever. And if you haven't gotten your offer in, then you're not even going to get a
Not
chance.
a chance to.
So my theory is just go ahead, put in your offer, and get it in as quick as you can.
Yeah.
Just so that you're at least in the mix.
Right. No, that makes sense. I think I've heard the opposite argument that says just like, oh, but you want to know how many offers there are on
But
the
who
table.
cares?
Just put your best offer out
Best foot
there.
forward.
Yeah, especially in this market.
Yeah, figure there's going to be multiple offers. Come in with, the highest and best that you're comfortable with, and, that's all you can do.
Right.
Because, I think some people think that agents will be like, oh, yeah, somebody offered this, so, you should offer more. We have a code of ethics. Realtors, shouldn't be doing things like that.
Right.
So hopefully that isn't happening.
Yeah.
All right. Our next thing is, what do you think of people writing personal letters, like love letters or videos about themselves? Are those working? Do we like those? What do we think?
I think that they do work. Now, when there's two offers on the table and one of them is substantially better than the other,
Doesn't matter.
then it's not going to matter what that letter says.
Except for you had somebody take an offer
did.
like a few $1,000s less
I
because they
did.
love the love letter and they love
They
the
did.
people.
It does happen. It does happen every now and then.
Yes, I had it too.
It really does. It does work. Like, put in those videos. I've had somebody actually, yeah, that's true. And it was just because they bonded, like, on the gaming thing. Like, they were both gamers, and they, it just, like, hit every single one of their things.
The seller wants to like the buyer. And if
Sometimes.
somebody's going to, love and care
Yeah.
for their house, like I'm a super gardener and you're a super gardener. So nobody's, you're going to make
Yeah.
sure my plants don't die.
This was last year. Yeah, it was unbelievable because it was like a few $1,000s. It wasn't just a couple hundred.
I know
mean,
you
it
were
was,
like, it's a lot of money.
I was like, I'll take additional commission.
Send it my way. No. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
but
funny.
but also I was gonna say, what is in the offer is always gonna be more important. But and the pre-approval letter, of course. But it does work. I actually last year I had some of my buyers do a video, and unfortunately, so they knew the lady. That was one of their customers at work, and they did like a personal video, like called her by name, like said, "We love serving you," like, it was just so personal. It was like perfect. And then she chose another offer and they were heartbroken. But I could see that being, going a step up in a lot of different ways, putting in that video or that letter and make yourself known.
We
There
have
are,
come across realtors, though, that will not send over the love letters.
yeah, they specifically, some are putting in the multiple listing service, no love letters.
If they're going to be like that, I hope that they do put it in the MLS. Like, please do us all a favor. If you're going to do that, let us know so we're not wasting time.
Yep, for sure. All right, so number 3 kind of goes along with what we were talking about before, waiving the home inspection. We're thinking, I know Stark has done some stats and things, and there are a lot more people this day and age waiving the home inspection because they want a better chance to get their offer accepted. It's a little scary.
Yeah.
There are home warranties. We talked to the home warranty company a few weeks ago, so you can protect people like that. But when you're talking to somebody and you're kind of going through the pros and cons of that, what are you telling them?
Right. A home inspection generally costs, I would say, around $400 or so. So it really depends on the house, too. Like, if we're going into a house that was maybe built in the early 1900s or something like that, then maybe that would be one that would need an inspection, or depending on the buyer, of course, with, like, some forgiveness there that says, hey, like, we understand we want to have the home inspection, but we're not going to ask you, the sellers, to fix anything under $2,000 or $3,000 or something like that, or however much they want to go
not
up
going to
to.
nickel and dime.
Exactly. But then, of course, like, if you see a house that's built in 2015 and you walk through it and you don't see any problems, like, maybe you're better off spending that $400 on the home warranty, toward the home warranty like you talked about, and not having that home inspection.
What about having a home inspection after the closing, just for their peace of mind?
Yeah, I think that's always an option. They always can.
And
It's
not
just
me, and it's
spending
not
that
part of the-
money. Yeah.
Not part of the negotiations, then it's just an option after the fact.
Right, just so they know what's on their to-do list.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
Could be an idea.
If it's just for peace of mind and not being mad at you for not having them do it up front.
Yep.
Yeah. What about waiving the appraisal or having appraisal forgiveness? So what appraisal forgiveness is when the buyer agrees to make up the difference if an appraisal comes in short. So sometimes people are bringing $20,000, $30,000 to closing to make up the difference for what something appraised for what they're willing to pay or what they have to pay for it to get it.
So with my buyers, what I'm doing is letting them know that that's probably going to be something that we're going to have to talk about. If we're writing over asking price, that's something that we're going to have to talk about. But what I try to do is, do a CMA, do a comparables, run a list of comparables that have sold in the last 6 months or so, and give them an idea of what I think the property will appraise for, so that they can be aware of what appraisal might come back at. Mm-hmm. So if it's, there's been times where appraisal will just come back a few thousand short or something like that, and that would be understandable. I want to be within that $5,000. I don't want to tell them, it's going to appraise at 380 and then it comes back at 360 and we're in a whole bucket of issues.
Whole bucket of nothing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, from the listing agent perspective, when we get a bunch of offers and you have one that says, yes, it's 300,000, but you're listed at 280 and there's no appraisal coverage, I'm letting my client know that this offer isn't really real unless the appraisal comes through. Right. So maybe we should look at this other one that's 290, but everything's covered because this is real and it's more guaranteed. But some people are risk takers and they're like, I think it's going to appraise. Let's do it. Yeah. And other people are like, give me the safe bet. Show me the money. Mm-hmm. So, right? Show me the money. All right, next. Cash is king. So show me the money. Yeah. How are you seeing people reacting with cash? More cash buyers, people borrowing money from mom, or people doing equity loans on their house to try and just get in as cash?
Yeah, I have seen some of that, especially like my opposers out there. I know that there's no offers beating mine unless they're cash. Okay, guys? No, but
I think we're throwing down, y'all.
It's amazing how many cash offers there are, though.
Yeah, it really is. It is crazy. And cash is king, Mm-hmm. But at the same time, at closing, when the seller gets their check, it's the same amount. Yep. So it's just, it's not just cash. It's looking at what the buyer has to bring to the table.
Yeah, if it's $20,000 light and it's cash, probably doesn't
not.
matter.
Right.
Right. So it's like cash is king, but if they can get $20,000 more, they're going to go for the mortgage every day.
Right.
Yeah, for sure. All right, next, be flexible on closing date.
Yes.
Yeah, Matt, go ahead.
Yes, be flexible.
Okay, Matt, why don't you say a little something on this one? You've been awfully quiet.
I'm just listening to you guys. I'm enjoying my conversation. So I think you just had this, didn't you, with the closing date?
I always have this.
Post-closing occupancy and...
Yes, yeah.
Working with the seller to find out what they really want. That's what, right now, that's what we need to do. Because, back when it was more of a buyer's market, it was like a fight to the death to, school's out, I want to close this day. Well, I don't care. My lease is up. I want to close this day, blah, blah, blah. And now it's just like, seller, what do you want? We will do that. We will give you 60 days post-occupancy and our firstborn. Take it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, I think right now we are just, in a way, catering to the seller. So, seller, what do you want?
Yep.
What totally time would you like? What day would you like? Do you want us to leave it opened so you can decide later? It's like pretty hardcore like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So on this article, it's talking about hiring an attorney. In Wisconsin, we don't really do too much with attorneys. Our title companies are owned by attorneys. So that's usually where the attorney piece comes in. If a client wants to have an attorney, that's no problem. But it tends to not be normal in our market.
And number 8 says use Home Team for You, who knows the neighborhood and schools.
Yes, use an agent that knows neighborhood, schools, and key players. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. What he said,
yep.
HomeTeamForYou.com.
Yeah, so a lot of this article is pretty spot on. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Anything else that we can think of that we could share, like our number 9 or our number 10?
I think sometimes the actual lender who it is might make a difference to the listing agent.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Somebody they may know and trust.
Yep. And being the agent that they know and trust too. I think that your reputation in the industry is huge. Like, don't burn your bridges. You're going to have to work with these people in the future. It's very important.
That's
That
why
is
we get so
very,
many
very
accepted
important.
offers, Katie. Everybody
Oh,
likes
really?
us.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
They're like,
awesome.
it's
Like
not
this.
Katie, it's Matt and Jen.
Yes. Yep. That's right. They write a love letter to you. In
That's
there.
right. Jacob's rolling his eyes behind the camera.
Yeah, Jacob. I know.
You
My
must
eyes
not
are rolling
write.
too. You just can't see it.
You probably don't write offers on Fridays.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wednesdays are much better.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you stinkers. The stinkers. But I would say for like a number 10 is be willing to think out of the box and look at each individual situation and think about, as a buyer, what the seller would really like and how you can do that. So whether it's if you're going to cover their taxes for 2021 or be able to let them take something that they really wanted or whatever it is, just thinking out of the box. So, because if you can have one little thing that's a little bit different and there's 5 offers and they're all basically the same, but yours has that little thing that's going to hit their heartstring, you win.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or it could just be cash.
Cash, high cash, pulling the heartstrings, that'll win
right.
too.
Hard cash.
Hard cash. What do you do, Matt?
It's all about the money. Show me that. How's it go, Jen?
Show me the money.
So, Matt, if you were selling, okay, this is just an example. If you owned your home for 50 years and you have put a lot of love into your home, raised the kids in there,
Okay.
all the memories, when you have 15 offers on the table and you know that one of them isn't a flipper, or not a flipper, but a
Investor.
investor, thank you. Brain isn't working this Friday. What would you be prone to take that offer because it's cash and it's an investor and with no inspection, or would you be?
Come on, really? You're gonna ask me another question? Another?
So that's your answer.
Yeah, easy and
So are you-
guaranteed.
Are you like pooping on first-time home buyers right now?
Why am I pooping on them?
Because you're not taking their offer into
easy,
account.
So easy and guaranteed. That's what I want.
Every
So
seller,
don't write Matt a letter, guys.
Yeah.
You can write me a letter.
Every seller has a hot button. You know what I mean? And we were a long time ago when we sold one of our houses in some prairie. There was competition. I mean, it was a long time ago, but there was competition, and where we saw the people, we didn't have any of the buyers, but years later we met some people, and they said, "Yeah, we wrote an offer on your house. We didn't get it." We were like,
Oh, the grudge.
yeah, like they remembered, and we never knew them, but they knew us. So we're like, oh. So I mean, in this industry, you do have to be careful.
So yes,
Yep.
Katie, easy and no hassles.
Yeah, I
So
should
if I
have
don't
known
have to,
that.
if I don't have to deal with any inspection stuff, I don't have to worry about
Yeah.
the closing. It's going to close on time. When I select, it's going to close.
Can
Yeah.
you guys think and like just in the future, one day when we finally get to like a more balanced market, it's going to be crazy the things we're seeing. It's going to be another world.
The hardest part is going to be sellers realizing they're not getting 50,000 over asking.
Yeah.
That's going to be the hardest part, and getting actually asking price or right at it 98%. Because in the past, it's been at like 98% was kind of our average. So if we get back to that 98% of list sale price, that might be a little bit of an adjustment for sellers.
I know it's kind of crazy because when I'm teaching and I'm in training, I'm like, okay, now let's talk about this scenario if it was a buyer's market. Because I mean, when we were coming up in real estate, it totally was a buyer's market. So I mean, we were doing things totally different.
Totally
I can
different.
imagine.
I mean, there was reverse subject to sale clauses for buyers. They would put 2 offers on different properties, and then they would say, seller, you give me the best terms, and then I'll pick which house I want. If you did that now, the seller would be like, ha 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 ha, bye-bye.
Wow, I can't even imagine that happening.
It happened to us. And we were like, what's this person doing? We're like, oh, they're genius.
Okay.
All the things. But yeah, very good. Well, I think we got through those. So good tips for people. Good stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I think we're going to be wrapping it up here. So thanks again for joining us. Hope you enjoyed learning about inspectors and some tips and tricks for the market. And thanks, Katie, for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
Katie. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of It's Gonna Be Great. If you're looking to buy or sell real estate in South Central Wisconsin, hit up Home Team for You. Home Team, the number 4, the letter U.com. All right. See you guys on the next one. Bye.
Bye.